All right, we're going to go through checking in patients. I'm going to start with a new patient. All right, the first thing when a patient comes in, you're going to greet them. You're going to say, "Hi, how you doing?" Because we like to be nice. When you're greeting a new patient after you're nice to them, then you're going to ask for their new patient paperwork, their insurance cards, and their photo ID. If they don't have their new patient paperwork, then you need to give it to them and then make sure that we can fit them into the schedule because the paperwork is a lot. So assuming that they have filled out their paperwork, you're going to disconnect the medical portion of the new patient paperwork and give it to the MAs or call for the MAs to do the abstraction on the patient. But you're going to keep the first two demographics pages. So I'm going to show you what those are. So the first page that you're going to keep, and there is a page before this that has the date and time of their appointment, and then also a directions page that you can disregard that. But these are considered the first two pages of the paperwork. It has all the patient's demographics, their physician information, emergency contact, insurance. And then there's the second page, which is the authorization page. This is very important. Every patient, whether or not they have insurance or if it's Medicare or if they're self-pay, it doesn't matter. Every patient needs to sign this field right here. They need to sign it, print underneath, and date it. Now for Medicare patients, they need to sign up here as well, but it's only for Medicare patients. Your other patients don't need to sign that in addition to this field down here. So these are the two pages that you're going to keep for yourself that we're going to work off of. All right, so from here, we're going to give the patient more paperwork, which they're going to be so excited about. We're going to give the patient the HIPAA form, ethnicity race form, a satisfaction survey, which they're probably going to say they need less paperwork, and then a self-pay agreement only if the patient has no health insurance, and a records release if it's a new sleep that has had previous sleep studies elsewhere. So if you have a new sleep that comes in, when you check them in, you're going to automatically ask them, have you had a sleep study before? If they say yes, then you're going to pull out this records release and have them sign it. So I'll show you what these forms look like. This is the HIPAA form. It's two-sided, and this is the second page. This first page here is just to say that we have given them a copy of our privacy notices. So you'll ask them, do you want a copy of our privacy notices? Most patients say no because they're pretty standard everywhere. And then you'll just give this to them. They'll print and sign it and date it. And that's one side. The second side is more for our information. It has a space for them to put their name and who we can release their information to. Can we release your information to your spouse, to your children? Is there a particular doctor that you want us to be able to send information to? Or a cousin? It doesn't matter. Or they have the option, do not release my information to anyone. And then at the bottom here, there's also the option for, you can call my home, but don't leave a message. And there's other options there as well. And that gets entered into EHR. Now, the rest of these pages, I'm not going to read them to you. They are our privacy practices that was created by our lawyer, and it is 8 pages. So if the patient wants it, you can give them those privacy notices. The next form is the ethnicity race form. This is something that we are required to have the patient's information, or at least some kind of answer for meaningful use. So we have to have their race, their primary language, and their ethnicity. And they have the option to not disclose. So they don't have to give us this information if they don't want to. The next one is a satisfaction survey for MPSA. And this just asks some general questions about the office, if they called in, were they called back promptly. So you can give this to the patient, and then there are boxes out in the lobby that they can put those in. The next is a self-payment agreement. Again, this is just for self-pay patients that they are required to pay $50 at their first visit and then $50 every month after that. And it makes them responsible for payment. So that $50 is not for the whole office visit, it's just kind of a down payment towards the office visit. And the records release. We have this records release that has specific information that we need for sleep patients. So all the patient has to fill out is their name, their date of birth. We don't need their social security number, who we're requesting the information from, whether it be Ohio Health, Columbus Sleep Consultants, COSM. And then this is where the patient signs and dates and prints their name. The expiration date, we usually date that as a year after the signature date. So if they're signing today, today's the April 21st, then we're going to date it April 21st, 2015. All right, so those are the additional forms to give to the patient after we already have their new patient paperwork. All right, so now we get to go into this system. So I'm going to go into our test database, and I'm going to find a new patient to check in. I might have to create one. I'm just going to add one of my testing patients. All right, so when you have the new patient paperwork and the insurance card and the photo ID in hand, then we're going to right click on the patient on the appointment book. You can also do it from the appointment list if for some reason you can't find it on the appointment book. So, so here's our testing tester. We can always look it up from here and then do check-in, create encounter. It's not going to let me because I'm on a future date. So I'm going to move this here. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to right click and check in, create encounter. So from here, what you need to pay attention to is make sure that the rendering is correct, so what doctor they're seeing, and then also the referring. The referring, you're going to look from that first demographics page to make sure that the referring reflects what's in the system. So I'm just going to hit OK. And if it's a new patient, it's going to ask you, do you want Dr. Tamadia to be the default rendering? We're going to say yes. Do you want Dr. Adam Keck to be the default referring? Sure. Alright, so now it brings up the patient's demographics, and here is where we're going to double check what is on that demographics page. This first page, make sure that the address is correct, the phone numbers are correct, the email address is correct, the occupation, the work phone number if they have one, and then the family and referring physician. So don't just trust what's in the system. Make sure that you're looking at that paperwork to match up NextGen with the demographics page. So here, if they're done with the paperwork that you've given them, we want to make sure that we have a race in here. So I'm going to say this person's Asian and his primary language is Swahili. I know none of this makes sense, but we're just going to go with it. And ethnicity is Hispanic. And he doesn't have a home phone number on there, so let's say that the new patient paperwork said that's his phone number. And then be wary of the social security numbers that have all nines. If they give you a social security number, please replace the all nines with the social that they give us. So here is where you'll want to scan in the patient's photo ID. So in this little gray box is where the picture is supposed to be. We're going to right click and go to New. I don't have a scanner installed on this machine, so I can't show you how to do it, but you would just hit this Norton button, do Acquire, and then it would give you the scan out of their driver's license that you just draw a box around where the patient's picture is, and it will make that picture in their file. Then you just hit OK. Now you can either add the insurance information here, or we can do it later on in the workflow. I'm going to do it a little bit later. Now, for patients that don't have charts, there's two different kinds of patients. There's globes and there's charts. I'm going to cancel out of this. Yes, I want to save my changes. So I'm just going to type in some letters here. So you'll see on the left here there's a difference. There's the yellow folders, and then there's these little worlds or circles. The folders are called charts, and the little circles are called globes. If it is a globe, it is either a patient that has never been seen here, has never had any kind of correspondence here, or it's a patient's relative. So if they have insurance under their husband, then we have to add their husband under what's called a relationship, so it could be that as well. If you're trying to create an encounter under a globe, and this will happen for some new sleep or some new patients, when you get to the demographics part here, it won't have an autoflow button. It will just say chart. And when you click on chart, then that is how you will go through the autoflow. Just a heads up. Alright, so this is the information too that we get from the demographic sheet that we find the patient's emergency contact. So let's say his wife's name is Frankie Tester, and I always put in parentheses what the relationship is just in case we ever have to use it, and then the contact phone number. These other fields we don't really use for new patients, but we have to mark when we gave the patient the privacy notice. So we're going to hit the calendar and it automatically selects today's date. So you're just going to click on it because today is the day that we got it for him. And then the privacy notice reason. And hopefully all of your patients will sign it. So we're going to say signed by patient. Here in the privacy notice notes is where you can put something like don't leave message at work. And then that way we have that documented. And it'll also get documented in EHR. So I'm going to hit autoflow. Now here's where we can add the patient's insurance. So let's say that this patient, the insurance isn't under their name, it's under their wife's name. So instead of doing new insurance, we're going to do new relation. And we're going to say it's, again, Frankie Tester. Okay, she's not in the system, so we're going to hit new because we have to create a globe for the patient. Now all that's really required for a relationship is the date of birth, the sex, and the relationship. So we're going to make her 46. She's a female, and the relationship is spouse. Now there's this little copy button, which is fabulous. Just hit the button and it copies the address and the phone number that was in your patient. Now from here, we want to add their insurance. So we're going to hit the insurance button. And you can either right click and do new insurance, or you can use the Norton button, new insurance. So let's say she has Anthem. Now the important things here are the policy number, the group number, and the copay. And I have an example of an insurance card here for you. So most of the insurance cards have this format where you have the patient's name, the ID number, the group number, and then a copay amount. We are a specialist office, so we collect the specialist copay. There are some cards that have premium specialist or premium PCP. If you see that, we go ahead and collect the premium copay because it is less, and then if it ends up that we're not premium providers, it's easier to bill the patient than to refund them. So just look for the member number, the ID number, and then the group number. So I'm going to add just some 9s in here. Give her a group number. And let's say that this has a $20 copay. Alright. So we're going to close and OK. So you can see under the patient, it automatically puts their relation down here, and then whoever the insurance is under, it will be under that person. So if the insurance was under testing tester and not under Frankie Tester, then you would still see the spouse, but you would see the Anthem under patient instead. Now I'm going to add an insurance for the patient just so that we can go through that as well. So I'm going to do Norton, new insurance, and let's say that he has United Healthcare. And you just double click, and I'm just going to put some numbers in here. Say, okay. Now you want to scan the insurance cards in as well, and I didn't show you this on the other one, but this is where you put the details in. This third tab over here says insurance cards. This is where you'll hit the Norton button, new insurance card, and it'll bring you where you can scan the front and the back of the insurance card. And again, I don't have a scanner, so I can't show you, but you would go to acquire and then just scan the card in. Alright, so you can see how it showed up here that it has UHC or United Healthcare under the patient because that's where we put it, and then Anthem under the spouse. Now this is really important that NextGen does not order the insurances by whether they're primary or secondary. So when you have a patient that has more than one insurance, you need to put whether it's primary or secondary in the note here. And that way, when you open it for follow-up appointments, if the patient's ever in the hospital, if they ever have any sleep studies, we can understand which insurance is primary or secondary. So we're going to make United Healthcare primary and Anthem secondary for test. Okay. So we're going to pull the insurances over into AutoFlow. Now this patient balance pops up for every patient. This is a new patient, so he's not going to have any balance. You're going to look, though, some new patients, if they're ever seen in the hospital, etc., you're going to look at this red amount here, that is what the patient owes. Yeah, AutoFlow. Now remember, we entered in a copay, a $20 copay on that Anthem insurance. So here is where we enter in the payment. So let's say that the patient paid it via check. So we're going to say $20 in the payment amount. You're not going to worry about this adjustment amount. Payment amount $20, and then the pay code, you're going to look for this copay. So we're going to do copay check, and there's the different kind of credit cards, there's cash that you can put it in. So we're going to do copay check. Now for checks, it's really nice for bookkeeping and for billing if we use the checking number and put it in this tracking field. That way, if a patient ever calls and say, hey, I paid that copay with check number 137, then it's really easy for us to look at this field to see that check 137, whereas if we were just looking for a $20 payment that happened to be a check, it could be like looking at a needle with a haystack. You know what I'm saying. So we're going to do save, and then it's going to pop up, where do you want to apply it? You always want to do, if it's a copay, you want to apply it to the encounter. If you apply it to the account, then it's going to possibly pay $20 on an encounter that was 3 years ago that they haven't paid for. So we're always going to choose encounter. Yay! Alright, so now we're going to hit AutoFlow. And it prompts us to print a fee ticket. I'm not going to print it, but I'm going to do a preview so I can show you what it looks like. So it has the patient's name, the last four of their social, date of birth, their address, insurance information, if they made a payment, and then down here is what the physicians use to make sure that billing gets whatever procedures were done while they were here in the office. So that's what a fee ticket looks like. All right, so I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint here, make sure that we got everything. We did check in, create encounter. We verified the patient's information, showed you where to scan the photo ID, the insurance information. We did all the copay fun. If the patient pays by cash, we are required to log it and give them a receipt. Right now, we're not utilizing the next-gen receipts. We still have the old-fashioned receipt books. So you'll use that. You'll put the date here, the patient's name in the received from field, and then in the address, they usually put their medical record number, how much they paid, and then in the 4 you'll put copay, and then I usually put the doctor, so they're seeing Dr. Cunningham or Dr. Skupta, and then how they paid and the amount they paid over here, and then put your initials in the by field. So have to do it for cash, and you can do it for check if the patient requests it. Alright, so say we printed the fee ticket. Now all that lovely paperwork that we had the patient fill out, we're going to attach it to the fee ticket. And we're also going to put an MA planner sheet, which I don't have. I'll open it up here. So we're going to add this MA planner to every single patient's fee ticket. So that way when the patient is seen by the physician, they can really easily use this form to make sure they know what they're ordering for the patient, and then when the patient's checkout will know what they need to do with the patient. So every single patient gets this MA planning sheet connected to the fee ticket. If the patient's in new sleep, we're also going to add this prior authorization sheet. Before, we had different forms for each insurance company. We have combined all of them to make this one-paged prior authorization sheet. So for every single new sleep patient, this needs to be included in the packet that you give to the physician. All right, so when we're all done, we have the packet ready. Then we're going to mark it as being ready for the medical assistant. And we do this by right-clicking on the appointment. We're going to go down here to workflow status, and then ready for MA. So then when they look at it in EHR, and they go to their inbox, then when they see this pink, they know, oh, that patient is ready for me. And that is how you check in a new patient in NextGen.